Alright, hello everyone. Today we'll just be going over my clear of Espgaluda. This is recorded in FB Neo using the default recording, so please excuse the poor quality. Jumping right in, we selected Ageha here because he's actually the faster of the two shot types, or the faster of the two characters that you can select, and also I'll point out some other useful areas in which that can be applied. Sorry, we're going really fast here. So for stage one, really the main goal that I have for approaching this stage is taking out this cancel here, or executing this cancel here, which is something that I learned from the Superplay DVD. And then after you've run out of gems, you can go into your Kakusei over mode. And the purpose of that is that you want to build up the levels for this, Kakusei red angry bullet time mode, essentially. And the reason why you want to do that is because at max level you actually get more gems off of killing enemies. And so that's really the whole thing with this game, and the whole gimmick is that through the stages you're really building up your gem count, which is your resource, in which depletes whenever you go into your bullet time mode. And so you lose bullets, or you lose gems by killing enemies within bullet time mode, and also just for being in bullet time mode for longer. And so it's really nice. The thing about this game that's really nice is that you can kind of pick and choose the difficult patterns that you don't want to learn how to dodge, and you just dump all your gems, towards that purpose. So here's the first boss. You can see that I have 0 gems right now because I just spent the entire stage building up my Kakusei overmode level. But that's really okay because this boss is not super difficult. And you also get a little bit of gems for destroying each phase of the boss as well. So you see I have 14 there. So in case you want to do a cancel at the end, you also have that option. There's not really much to say about this boss besides the fact that you can kind of hang out directly below that sort of capsule cylinder object that she fires out, and it's actually, in my opinion, the safest place to be. If you're really good, you can get a cancel here, but I miss it, and so I go into over mode. Unfortunate, but not the end of the world. And you can see here that I actually got 50 gems for killing that last, that last phase of the boss. So you actually do get a hefty increase for being in the max Kakusei over mode level. So this is the start of stage 2. Different to how I approached the first stage, I really stopped trying to go for big nice cancels or go for score at all. And you can see a couple of places in stage 2 where it could be really easy if you're playing for survival, but really difficult when you're playing for score. And I'll point those out. So that enemy is worth a lot of points, and it's really easy to go into Kakusei and kill it, so that's exactly what I do, and it results in a bullet cancel. Oh, so that's one thing I didn't mention is when you kill an enemy while they're shooting bullets in Kakusei mode, then all of those bullets cancel into a big multiplier. And so the whole point of that is you want to be killing lots of enemies in Kakusei and chaining their bullet cancels in order to get a higher score. Of course, I don't do that too much or don't show that off, but if you want, you can always check out a Superplay video for the proper techniques. Here we're just focusing on survival. So here's the mid-boss. I believe that this first pattern is random. But in this situation, we got a pretty easy one, and we have a lot of gems in case, and we'll use them here because this pattern can sometimes be a little mean and wall you off. But with Kakusei, it's no problem at all. So here's where stage 2 really becomes very different depending on what you do. So if you kill the head card of those trains, it actually destroys the entire train and also gives you a bullet cancel. And so if you're really just playing for survival, all you need to do is kill the head train and everything just dies. Whereas, if you were a good player and if you want to go for score, what you would do is wait for that train, or let that train live for a long time, and wait for all the bullets to be fired and then kill it. But for our purposes, killing the head of the train as fast as possible makes you survive a lot more consistently, at least for me. Okay, so here is close to the end of the second stage. You know, these are really big, nice enemies that shoot a lot of bullets, and it's really easy. So I go for the the score here, and I just got the extend. So if you play a little bit for score in the first two stages, you can get your extend here. Actually, you can get your extend in the first stage, but we're not that good. Regardless, here is the stage 2 boss. These first two patterns are really no problem. This one can be a little tricky, especially if the two walls of bullets line up like this. That doesn't always happen, but in this case we got a little unlucky. And so you can use Kakusei there if you're having trouble. I canceled that pattern just because it's worth a lot of points and we have a lot of resources, which is nice. Strafing to the left and the right is really crucial for this pattern just because it's a really weird, like, circle-ish pattern that kind of folds in on itself, and it can, tag you if you're not careful. So for this last pattern, you're killing a bunch of those little turrets that it spawns, and in a lot of cases you're not damaging the boss. So this can get a little bit tough, and that's why I usually go into Kakusei. A word of warning is that if you try to bomb this final pattern, you have to get really right on top of the boss in order to do damage to it. Otherwise, the little turrets absorb all the hits. I didn't mention earlier, but this game has an auto bomb system where if you take a hit while in bullet time mode, it actually takes away half of your bomb resource. And instead of having like singular bombs, you instead have this meter. And if you bomb 4 times, then it's the equivalent to depleting your entire meter. So you start with a full, bomb meter, which is more called an energy shot in this game. And if you take hits in bullet time, or if you use it yourself, then it depletes. Kind of like an Espgaluda, if you're familiar with that game. So in stage 3, you'll notice one of the saddest things about it is that the trains are a bit different. They don't actually, they don't actually reward a full screen wipe when you kill the heads in this case. So you have to be kind of careful taking out the trains as soon as possible, especially the ones that shoot those flowers or those circles of bullets. Flowers, I'm thinking about Mushi. But anyway, one of the reasons why Ageha is really good is because they're able to strafe from left to right, especially in stages like this, because you want to be killing the high value targets as soon as possible, especially when they're the trains. And the real, and Ageha just makes it so that you can do that much easier. Of course, if you were good, you'd learn how to chain all of those trains, but, we made do. This pattern, you can actually get some nice points off of it. I've seen in some videos because of the turrets that are spawned, but, we're not quite there yet. And just canceled that last pattern for a little bit of damage, or for a little bit of score. So stage 3 is actually really long. It's kind of multi-layered too. There's different chunks of it that you have to approach with different strategies. Getting kind of carry here. One thing that Ageha struggles with is actually that because their shot is kind of narrow, some of those popcorn enemies, when they bum rush you like that, become a little difficult to deal with. So, sorry, I didn't mention when it was happening on screen, but I actually picked up a bomb refill. So in this game, there are 3 bomb refill items that give you 50% of your energy shot back, and one of them happens in mid-stage 3. So that's why I was kind of liberal with my bomb use there at the very end. I kind of knew that I was getting a stock. I had over half of it full, so it's worthwhile to just use it anyway. So we're getting towards the end of stage 3 here. There's a lot of big enemies in this section, so don't be afraid to use Kakusei if you're having trouble. One word of warning, though, is that these popcorn enemies, you see them coming in from the left, and they'll come in on the right as well. They actually come in specifically to give you trouble and deplete your gems, because if you remember, if you kill those enemies while in the Kakusei mode, then your gems deplete faster. And so you can see right here, I really want to be killing that turret, but I have to wait until the popcorn go away just to save some resources. The nice thing about this is that they give you a lot of gems towards the end, so you can kind of feel a bit more relaxed. So those propellers on the right and the left actually give you a screen clear, so you can use those to your advantage to get through this part. And then here is the 1-up item. If you shoot this middle part in Kakusei mode, you see the life item right there and I pick it up. So make sure you always get that because, you know, it definitely helps. And you can see that it comes in handy in getting the clear. So here's the stage 3 boss. It's kind of more of the same. The first pattern is simple to get through. Just be aware to macro dodge that giant, weird, I don't even know what to call that, bullet pattern, but, you know, it's just a giant thing you can macro around. This guy's a little weird because it's a lot of overlapping patterns that are all blue, which always give me trouble, but in this case, it was okay. Here's kind of a weird one where you have to line up laterally with this giant tail thing. I cancel it because there's a lot of bullets. Sometimes the tail comes back up and it can swipe you, so just be aware. This is the part of the boss where you can actually milk really heavily if you were really good. So you could go through this phase multiple times and just milk those turrets, but in this case I don't want to do that because I need Kakusei for this pattern here. This is pretty difficult to dodge if you're not in bullet time, of course, because, you know, everything's moving at full speed. And then finally we have this last pattern, which is sometimes really easy, but other times is not super nice. So here you can see that I kind of picked a bad lane. I have to realign in Kakusei mode. But after I do that, everything seems to work out just fine. Okay, so that's stage 3 done. Moving into stage 4. This is where the difficulty kind of really ramps up. And you really want to start liberally using your Kakusei or your bullet time mode while in, while through the stage. Whereas in a lot of cases you want to save your gems to the boss fight. Here, you're kind of forced to use it more liberally. So here is going to be a really large enemy at the left, canceling it. Trying to go for a little bit more points here. Usually whenever you see like a bunch of turrets lined up and a really big enemy, it's just an easy opportunity to, get a chain going. Although I don't really focus too much on it here. The next extend comes at, what is that? 14 million, I believe. So we're almost there. We're definitely going to get it during this run. Oh, you can see here that those bee enemies, or the wasp-looking enemies, are really nasty. I took a death there with a pretty good bomb stock too, so it was kind of devastating that happened. And the reason is because they shoot these really dense patterns. You can see right here. You have to line up with them, and then a really fast shot after this initial wave. You see it here again, and they happen everywhere, or they occur everywhere. So you have to really be vigilant and know where they spawn, and take them out before they can shoot that next, or that second needle-like pattern. Here's the mid-boss for stage 4. If you did a good job of building up your gems, then it really isn't any big problem. Little hairy there, almost got walled off, but Kakusei mode made that no problem. That's the thing with this game, is that, you can make mistakes, and it's really forgiving in that regard, because you can use your gems to kind of correct those errors a bit more reliably than if you had to improvise. Here are these bee or wasp enemies again. So you can see that I'm lining up with dead center of the wasp, and the nice thing about Ageha is that they're able to kill them before the second round of bullets start coming out, which I don't think that you can do as well with Tateha. So that's another reason why I find clearing with Ageha much easier. Just getting that large enemy here. Lining up again, you see on the right, there's going to be another one that's coming up relatively soon. Killing those tank enemies is also really important. So here's another really tricky section. You can see when two of them come at once, and you're not lined up correctly, it can get really scary. So that's why, bullet time mode is there to save the day. Alright, so another big enemy on the right, but we also have this pesky tank on the left. Dealing with that in bullet time mode drained most of our resources, so we have to be a bit careful here. And, these waves just keep coming. Ouch, took a death there with a pretty good bomb stock as well. So the thing with Espgaluda is that your bombs are super powerful, and, because they basically function as both an auto bomb, as well as just like having the ability to do damage, it's really devastating when you lose that resource to a death. So at this point, it's really kind of difficult to recover, but we'll see how we do. So, sorry, I completely did not talk about this boss fight at all, but you can see that I pulled off a couple of, tricks for the first phase that you can get from Jamers's video or the Superplay DVD. Essentially, because this tank doesn't have a hitbox, you can sit on top of it and dodge some of the more difficult patterns. So here you can see that I'm bobbing and weaving from left to right because these turrets get spawned that make dodging this pattern more difficult. But because of Ageha's movement speed, it's really not so difficult to dodge it. You just have to go from left to right to destroy the turrets before they shoot, and then it makes that pattern way easier. You don't even need bullet time to dodge it. Here's the final pattern. It's manageable, but having bullet time always helps, right? Get this thing really consistent. Just going to cancel it at the very end. And we got our last extend. So that's all the lives that we're going to get. Taken 2 deaths in kind of tragic ways, but that was a reasonable stage 4 boss fight. So stage 5, it's a long stage because there's 2 parts, but part 5A is actually not that long. And, it's kind of more of the same, really. Really high priority enemies spawn. In this case, it's that crab-like ship on the right. And you just want to take them out as soon as possible because they fire really dense bullets. And the difficulty in this stage comes from the fact that there are going to be those crab-like enemies that on the screen, as well as giant turrets. And so when you have 2 enemies that kind of spawn those dense bullet patterns, it becomes kind of hard to dodge. And you waste a lot of your bullet time meter just because of the fact that you want to stay alive. Here's this big enemy. It's always worth canceling because of all the bullets it puts on screen. Because of all these things that I mentioned about stage 5, you really are straddling the line of resources every time. Okay, you want to line up with these ships from right to left here, because otherwise they just pollute the screen and you die. So I would recommend rewatching that part just to see exactly how I take care of those enemies that show up in a row from right to left, and also left to right. So here's the second bomb stock of the game that you get. So, it's really funny because I thought I was being so smart using a bomb to obtain the bomb stock because I would still have full bomb stock, but instead I just, sat right in a dense bullet pattern and died. So this run is not looking so hot right now because of those pretty crucial mistakes in stage 4 and also now in stage 5A. But the bulk of stage 5A is done. We just need to collect our power up. Those soldiers there on the steps actually are worth a lot of points, but since I already got my second extend, I was just focused on survival. And here is the stage 5A boss, which is Ciceri. She's back. And this boss is actually quite difficult, mostly because I was really nervous, and it requires a lot of precise micro-dodging. And I'll show you an example of this is right here with this pattern, which was made much easier by bullet time. But the biggest reason is because of this pattern right here. You're essentially walled off and have to rotate, once or twice around Ciceri and this vase-like thing that's shooting bullets at you. And halfway through, it actually, goes from rotating clockwise to counterclockwise right here. It actually becomes much faster, and you have a shorter, spatial window to how to navigate in. But if you point blank it a lot with Ageha, it dies before it really becomes a problem, and you're able to, move on to the next phase. Sometimes it gets a little hairy when you don't point blank correctly, or you want to kill it with bullet time mode. But in this case, it turned out to be okay. This final pattern, the way you can deal with it is bobbing and weaving from side to side, so you don't have to go through the most dense wall. If I have resources at this stage, I just use them all, and I bomb at the end, just to make sure I don't die, especially since I essentially died 3 times in really tragic ways. And I need all the resources I can get for the final boss. Alright, so here is, the classic ESP cave Alice clone section, where they just shoot a lot of really dense needles at you, and you kind of have to precisely navigate your way through them. The strategy is actually very similar to Esperade, where you really just want to be drawing Cs with your character, moving in this sort of C-like movement pattern, so that you kind of herd the bullets towards specific areas and create windows for you to kind of cut through them again and again. So I actually do a pretty decent job here of showing that. Sometimes I just have to bullet time through everything. But the reason why you don't want to be killing a bunch of things in bullet time here is because then it depletes your gems, and you really don't want to do that because you want to save them for the final boss, especially if you don't have that many lives. Here I kind of use some of them up just for safety. So the thing that I forgot to mention is that after you die, you reset with 250 gems, which is really helpful for extended boss fights, like the final boss, for example, which is 3 separate forms. So here's the last energy stock of the game. If I really wanted, I could have bombed at the end to guarantee my safety, knowing that that was there. So that's another strategy that you can use to get through that section. So here is like the pre-final boss. It's kind of like the Ares of Esperade. One fun tidbit is that if you kill the wings on the left side or the right side only, it actually makes the bullet patterns less dense, even though the boss gets a little bit angrier and the boss patterns become a little bit, faster and supposedly more dense. Because you only kill one of the wings, and a lot of the bullets come from one of the wings, or both of the wings, then, it actually makes it easier for you to dodge, as you can see here. This last pattern is mostly dodgeable without bullet time. You just need to kind of be aware of what's happening. So there are these streams of bullets that kind of herd you into specific lanes, and also these larger herding bullets. And so you kind of just have to find your windows and stick through them while dodging the larger bullets. So we're going into the final boss here with 300 gems and 3 lives. So at this point, it's looking pretty doable because I was able to no-miss all the way up until this point. So this first phase is pretty simple. You don't want to be fighting it for too long because with each stream of bullets, they become larger and they kind of chase you around, like you're seeing here. So you really want to kill it as soon as you can. You see that it's continuing to chase me. But, all things considered, it's manageable. Same with this pattern. So, the final boss will now kind of shoot those. And this is the one that I have a lot of difficulty with. So you have to kind of find your lanes again while avoiding those large circle type of bullets. So I just use a lot of my gems towards killing it. If I really wanted to save some, I should have gone out of Kakusei just to before I killed the boss phase, but it's okay. So here you can see that I basically get walled and I have to bomb, but I was happy that I Kakusei'd because I wouldn't have been able to react in time regardless. Here you want to kill the Alice clones that are spawned. They shoot revenge bullets, but you don't want them to be floating around for this next pattern. And they will do that if you don't kill them beforehand. So it makes this next pattern much easier, because you're not accidentally killing Alice clones and getting revenge bullets that form balls that you have to go through. Okay, so here is the final boss, the final form as well. So I start off on the left here, because this pattern gets really dense, and you kind of have to stick to your lanes, and they go in on each other, and etc. And so what I did was I just bombed, because it's really hard, or I find it really hard to approach that one normally. And the second part of that pattern is actually quite a bit easier to get through, as you saw. So here is the part where you kind of have to move up and down through the various windows. You don't want to go through both at a time. You can see that I died because I tried to do that. But, you want to go through the lanes of bullets on the top, and then the bottom, and then the top and the bottom. Or in whatever way that the game throws it at you. But the point is that you go through vertically one line of bullets at a time. So now that I have 2 lives and I have a full bomb stock, I just go ahead and use it all on this boss essentially, or on this pattern, because as you'll see, the final pattern does not allow you to actually bomb it, so you have no use for bombs anyway. And so I figured, well, why not use it all here? And also Kakusei while you're at it, because that also doesn't help you. So this is the final pattern. You essentially have to dodge this while shooting the boss without any help from Kakusei or your bomb. the bomb actually heals him, believe it or not. So there are a couple ways to dodge this. The main sticking point is that it's static, and there are actually only two, as far as I can tell, versions of this pattern. And if you just memorize them, you can dodge them pretty reliably. Here you can see that, I'm doing a pretty decent job. I die right there because I get hit. But, because I had an extra life, it was really no problem. Just to elaborate more on that, because there's only two different variations, if you select your same starting point and you memorize exactly where the two variations diverge, then you can either go with one or the other. And it actually turns out in this run that I got the harder of the two patterns. After we watch the credits and stuff, I'll show you the other pattern, or the other variation of that pattern that's a bit easier. And we can see exactly, or I'll narrate exactly how I approached dodging it. So that's really it for this run. A couple closing thoughts, I think, is just that Espgaluda is a really cool game. It's really approachable as far as getting the clear because of what I mentioned before, where you can apply the gems to really any pattern or any section that you're having difficulty with. And it really helps allow you to choose, the challenge, or modify the challenge to your liking. So if you really think a section is annoying, or you really think that you don't want to deal with something, then you can just plan accordingly and use your resources towards that purpose. And then for patterns that you find dodging a bit easier, then you don't have to use them. And then you have more in the bank for later. So in that sense, I really think that this game is really nice for just learning how to play, I guess, shmups in general, and how to clear a cave game, essentially. And in that same vein, it's also really cool as far as the scoring system goes. So, that's really it for this run. And let's see. I think we have... Okay, here's the final pattern. So I start on the bottom here. When I see that it starts to overlap, I go down. Here is the nicer pattern, so I'm waiting a bit, and then I go back up. It's going to start crossing over again, so I go back up again, go to the left, go down, and now you're really golden. So the idea behind what you want to do now is you want to use the sound cue of you shooting the boss to line up with the boss while you're here. And if you're lined up with the boss and applying enough damage, then when it starts to get really dense like this, he's going to die. Right now, you see I did a really bad job, so I actually take a death there. But if you were lined up with the boss a little bit more, then you could get that within 1 credit, no problem. Or sorry, you can get that within 1 life, no problem. And with that, thanks for watching.